They go into the restaurant business, then 6 months, bring all the friends, big party time, then they realize they're $300,000 in debt. And there's no way to get out of that. And that's where I come in. And I've been doing it for 16 years, not only on television, but with major corporations, looking at their systems to make them better.
Welcome to Paychex Thrive, a business podcast where you'll hear timely insights to help you navigate marketplace dynamics and propel your business forward. Here's your host, Gene Marks.
Hey everybody, it's Gene Marks and welcome back to another episode of the Paychex Thrive podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a special guest today. I'm really excited to speak with Robert Irvine. Robert, perhaps you know him from the Food Network's hit show, Restaurant Impossible. Robert is also a world-class, of course, chef and entrepreneur and a tireless philanthropic supporter of our nation's military. He's the author of a few books, not only the owner of restaurants, but his most recent book is called Overcoming Impossible. I've read the book. I have some questions for Robert. So Robert, first of all, thank you so much for joining.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. And by the way, Robert, Bob, Rob, what do your friends call you?
Robert.
Robert is good. All right, that sounds
chef.
good. So
I'm
glad that you're here. I do have a lot of questions about the book that you wrote, and I think we should talk about it for a little bit, and we can get into the restaurant industry, also before we finish this conversation. But let's talk, about Impossible, Robert. The book is called Overcoming Impossible. How do you define impossible? What does that mean?
I think anything that's how I define it is anything that you've not come up against and you don't know how to handle it. I believe there's nothing that's impossible in this world, no matter who you are, what you are, where you come from, the amount of money you have. There are always obstacles in the way, but nothing is impossible. You just have to stop and rethink. Overcoming impossible is really about the thing that you haven't found yet, which is success.
Sure. It's amazing how many people there are in this world that you deal with that either say no or say it can't be done. And from running businesses that you look to hire people and people that are that say yes, or when you ask them to do something or when there's a problem, their response is, "I'll fix it." Do you think that's like something that can be learned, or is that something that's just sort of inbred in a person?
It's an interesting question because it's a double-edged sword, because you want to hire people that have a thought process that don't say yes. And let me explain that. I've always been the youngest at everything I've ever done and had pushback from senior leadership in those organizations. I was always taught joining the military to do what you're told to do, but be able to question why, if you think there's a better way of doing it, to achieve either the same goal or a better goal. So we have just under 6,000 employees. 10 senior leaders, 60 mid-sized leaders. And just because Robert Irvine owns 11 companies doing X amount of dollars doesn't mean that he's always right. So I think there's a very, very trusting way in when you hire people, not just to say yes, but to question, because I have allowed that, because that's how I grew up and that's how our companies have been successful. But the caveat being, do what you're asked, and then ask why. Why do we do it this way? And most bosses will say, because we've been doing it forever. Well, I've made a living out of challenging that. Literally, from the largest companies, from the Walmarts of the world to the militaries of the world, you name it. I question why they have their systems in place and why do they do the things they do when there's always a better way to do it.
The people that are watching this and listening to this, they're running businesses. They've been doing it for a number of years. And they hire younger employees, people that are, out of college or people in their 20s. younger generations now, they have so much more confidence than I ever did when I was at that age. And there's a lot of reasons why, but it is just not uncommon for a kid in their mid-20s to say to a business owner in his or her mid-50s, I don't think this is being done the right way, or I don't think, there's a better way to do it. And a lot of my clients, a lot of business owners, you push back on that. So, what do you do? What do you do when you've got like a younger person that comes to you with all of your experience and all the things and says, I don't agree with how this is being done, or I think it's a better way to do it? What's sort of how do you react to that? What advice do you have about reacting to something like that?
Number one, we do some really delicate work to do with food, but outside of the food environment where national security is part of that, right? So, and I can't tell you what that is, but
well, you could tell me, but you'd have to kill me. Is that what I'm hearing?
Something like that.
Okay.
Or you'll be getting a knock on your door in about 15 minutes. The reason that I'm telling you that is because I deal with my COO is 35 years old. He runs billions of dollars worth of business and 6,000 people. So if somebody comes to me and says, I don't believe that's the right way to do it, then I'll say, okay, well, here's the problem. This is why we do it this way. Now tell me what you would do differently to give me the same or better end result. And I do that weekly. That's not just an off the cuff, this week in 1 year. This happens every week or every other week to me because we do sensitive work, not only in restaurants and companies, but our military in places that you hear about on the news or you read about. And then there's a lot of places that you don't even know where we are. And there's a reason for that. So my job is to supply food and equipment to these people that need it at a specific time. And if I say it takes me 8 weeks on the water to get somewhere, and somebody says, oh, but if we use a plane and it's going to cost this, I say, okay, but the difference in cost values it at this, and we're not going to pay that much money for this product, right? So I have to explain myself within reason to those people. And bear in mind, I just told you, I had 10 senior leaders that have a say in anything we do in the 11 companies or 12 companies that we own. Why? Because I have a vested interest in it. So I think there's and I say this in my book, and we'll get to that at some point, I'm sure, but, egos. Most companies are led by egos. There can't be an ego in a company that's serving other people. Their life or death is an occurrence if you don't do your job. And I think of the military, right? When we give you a rifle at 6 weeks in, we show you how to use it. We clean it in dark weather, cold weather, wet weather, et cetera, so it becomes ingrained in you that you don't have to think. That's how I train my people. You don't have to think because you already know the answer before the problem arises. Right. And I think that's important. Listening is okay. It doesn't cost you anything to listen. And the more you listen, the better you will become, not only personally, but your companies, as well as that young person, male or female, that's telling you something. They start to trust you more because you listen to them, whether you use their information or not. We're in a free country. You had a chance to talk at the right time.
Fair enough.
I to a 4-star general, Secretary of Defense, President of the United States, which I do frequently. Can I tell them what to do? No, but I can offer a suggestion of something different.
Fair enough. Robert, you really made your livelihood in one of the toughest industries in the world. Obviously, the restaurant business is not an easy place, and I think just as a consumer, it seems like a much harder environment to operate today than maybe it was 20 years ago, particularly when it comes to labor. Finding people is tough nowadays. It's a very pro worker environment right now around the country. People, younger workers have the internet. They know what other options there are out there for them. The loyalty is very tough. Sometimes I go into restaurants, Robert, and it blows my mind how well they're run. Like the staff is cheerful and accommodating and good, and it's like they care about their jobs. And obviously that has to come down from ownership and management. It's just it starts at the top. What advice do you have for people running not only restaurants but also businesses, and particularly businesses with hourly workers where turnover could be high? How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them coming back?
I think it starts, number one, with knowing who your employees are. And I give you an example. So if you have 10, 20, it doesn't matter how many employees you have, but I have a person that has an autistic daughter. I have to know that person has an autistic daughter, and his mood or her mood or timing of getting to work may be tardy because of this. A mother died yesterday. Brother was in a car accident. We have to understand the lifestyles of our people, because it's not about money. Although right now, look, I pay a cook $27 an hour. But understanding their lifestyle and able to adapt to their lifestyle makes you a better human being and a better boss, and somebody that's going to create loyalty. I can tell you, in 15 years we've been in business, now 6,000, just under 6,000 employees, I've lost 3 people because I chose to lose them. Not because they wanted to leave, because they didn't do their job. Mm-hmm. We grow exponentially, but knowing and understanding their life, their problems, their issues. And yes, sometimes it is money. And you have to be able to open enough to say, well, look, if it's money, what are you going to do more for me that allows me to pay you more? So it's a win-win situation. And I think bosses far too often are very stuck on, nope, that's what I'm paying you. It's $15 an hour and you better work 8 hours and there's no intercommunication skills between everyone. I sit down, I take my employees on vacation, my vacations. I sit down with coffee with them. I buy meals. I cook meals. I know intricately the people that work with me because I spend more time with them on the road than I do with my wife at home. Mm-hmm. And I think when you understand that and what makes people tick, money doesn't always make people tick. It could be a pat on the back every day. It could, or it could be a vacation now and again. It could be competition. It could be, there are 1,000 things that motivate people. And it's up to you to individually find out what motivates each person that works with you. That's what leadership is. A boss can tell anybody to do anything and have disgruntled employees. A leader understands, works alongside, and teaches them. My job as a leader of my companies is to make sure the person underneath me takes my job, and so on and so on and so on down the line. That's how you keep employees, giving them an opportunity to be a part of the conversation, but also grow within your company.
Okay, thank you. Back to your book, and I do want to ask you some questions about the restaurant business, but a couple of points that came out in your book that I was hoping that you could share with us as well. I want to ask you about failure. You've given instances where you failed in your life, and we all have our failures, both personally and professionally. It's fascinating to me to hear from successful people like yourself how you've dealt with failure. Michael Jordan once said, "I failed and failed and failed until I succeeded." I don't know if it's that easy. How do you deal with failure?
I failed a couple of times, more than a couple of times. I think, as an entrepreneur, you're always going to want to do things, right? And it started when I started as a young kid, wanting to be my own boss. I would lay at night with a book at the side of my bed and come up with these crazy ideas of what I want to do next. So one of them was pizzas. One of them was a sports drink. One of them was, So The list goes on, by the way, because I still do it. Except now I've learned after, I put pizza into a national distribution, and one of the biggest pizza companies in the world paid more money to remove me, right? Same with a drink, a powerful sports drink that actually was a recovery drink, actually proven to work. But a bigger company came in and said, hey, you're making too much noise. We're taking you out. So I think failure is okay as long as you learn and you put places. Look, it's okay to fail once at one thing. You can fail multiple times, but not the same thing. When I started Fit Crunch years and years ago, people said to me, oh, you can never do this because protein bars are done this way and that way. Well, now our protein bar company is worth a couple of $1 billion because I did something different and I went against the grain. So I always say this to entrepreneurs, don't listen to the noise, because there are lots of people out there always going to say, oh, no, you can't do this. You'll never be successful. You'll never be successful. Do you know how many times I've heard that? Gene, a million times. Every time I launch something, I do the best I can do with risk mitigation. All right. How many people? Well, when I started the bar company, there was 231 bars in the retail space. We're number 3 right now in the world. So am I number 1? No. Will I be number 1? Yes. Right. And I think it's the attitude and the people you surround yourself with. When you fail, how did I fail? And you dissect, what was it that I failed with? Was it price to market? Was it the price of the product delivered? Was it the glass I used? Was it the packaging I used? Was it, I think you dissect all those things. And especially what I do before we even go to market now, everything I failed on before, which I didn't get an answer to, I now have an answer to. I have analytics. I know, where you spend, what you do, maybe not by name, but by age group, because I buy that information. There's so much information to buy on consumers that visit your restaurants, that go to the supermarket, that go to a clothing store. We build product based on, and I told you I used to write things down and just go and do them. Now, I have the customers or the companies come to me and say, can you create this? Great price, better product, and this is what I want. And then I go away and I make it.
Right.
By the way, within a week of them asking. Not many people can do that because we own everything we do. Team, we own the manufacturing plants, we own the distribution, we own the product.
Robert, you said something while we were on break before that sort of intrigued me. You were talking about your lifestyle, and because of the businesses that you run, because of the ambition that you write about in your book, you travel something like 400 days a year and have another 20 days at home or something to that math.
345 days and 11 days at home. Yeah.
It's a lot of travel. It's unusual. People don't do that. Most people, particularly people that are listening to this and watching this, they don't have a kind of a schedule. You clearly have got some type of a system, a discipline for balancing both work and your personal life. I am sure you are not working 24 hours a day. And
so why am I laughing at you right now, Gene? Because I have this conversation with CEOs and major Fortune 500 companies, and actors that you and I know, movie directors that you and I know. I was with Tom Hanks 2 days ago, literally the president 3 days before that. There is no such thing, and let me repeat myself, there is no such thing as work-life balance if you are a type A personality, because you want to win and succeed. So everybody says to me, I had 2 girls. One's 22, she's almost, 24, she's almost a doctor at Johns Hopkins. One's 22, she's a lawyer in Philadelphia. And I brought them up the same way. You have to work hard to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And there's not 1,000 Robert Irvines, there's not 1,000 Genes, there's not 1,000. There has to be people that don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to do it because I want to continue to grow the company because I have a responsibility to 6,000 or just under 6,000 employees to make sure they're fed, they're housed, their kids are taken care of and clothed in school. And that's my responsibility that I choose to take very personally. Then on top of that, everything that we do in TV, in commerce, in restaurants, in clothing, in nutrition, in food companies, in AI, in robotics, in all those things that we do, I have a foundation that takes care of those men and women that wear the cloth of our nation and our first responders.
Right.
And I hold that very, very dear and close to my heart. It's a legacy. When I'm gone, what did I leave on this earth to make it better?
But Robert, you have to do something to take your mind off of work. I mean, I don't. I mean, what would you say to your daughter if she was working the kinds of hours that you work? What if she came to you, your attorney in Philadelphia, who said, you know what, I'm going to give up my job because I want to raise a family and maybe work part time at a law firm? I mean, would that disappoint you? Because that seems inconsistent with what you do.
No, but my kids are very much like me, so. They chose to be in the service business to help people.
Okay.
My life on this planet, and I said it's not for everybody, my life on this planet is to make as much change for as many people that are less fortunate than I am. I came from 2 slices of bread, butter, and sugar, 5 days a week at home. My mother still lives in the same home at 80 years old that I grew up in. And she doesn't even own it. She still rents it.
Okay.
Even though I've tried to buy it. So for me, I didn't grow up with big houses and big cars and a great lifestyle. I grew up with secondhand clothes that, even though they're washed, you go to school scratching and itching. And so I think the lesson I learned as a young kid was, and my dad was in the Army. My dad came out of the Army, started drinking, became a painter and decorator. To me, was lazy. All right. And I told him that when I was old enough to tell him that. But that was all he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And that was very hard for me to understand that, because I live to see the potential in the human being I'm working with. Mm-hmm. And when I feel they're slacking, I tell them that I feel they're slacking and what they can do to get better if they want to grow. And some of them say to me, Robert, I'm just quite comfortable, doing this 8 hours, going home. And I'm okay. As long as I know that and you're comfortable with that, then I'm okay with that. But I get a rush. For me, it's the chasing of the game. When somebody says to me, you can't do it, just like the protein bar or like the food company, oh, you can't do it. Why? I think differently than you, and I'm going to do it. And look, I maxed out credit cards. I put my house on the market to be as collateral. I mean, I've done all those things because I believe in me and I believe in something different. Everybody gets a status quo. But if you look at Mark Cuban, Matt Higgins, Matt Higgins used to run the Miami Dolphins. He was on Shark Tank, great friend of mine. If you look at these folks, they all come from nothing. And they've achieved a status because they work. And again, you go back to work-life balance, because that was how we started this. None of them has that. I've asked each and every one of them. Gary Sinise, the actor who I work with closely on my foundation, same thing. Robert, I don't have work-life. I have a responsibility to fulfill, which is to not only the people who work for me, but also my family. And I think that stuck with me forever. Even if I won, $7 billion tomorrow, my life is not going to change.
Fair enough. Okay.
I'll be able to do what I do, eat what I want, go where I want, the same as I do now.
Message received. And it's inspiring. You mentioned before about you put your house on the market, you've maxed out your credit cards, you mentioned some of the entrepreneurs that you've worked with. You've taken risks, and you've met lots of people that have taken risks. Talk to me about risk. How much would you risk now being at the state that you're in? You ever hear people that, they bet it all, they lose it all, they win it back again, and they bet it all again. There are just people out there that do that. And I'm interested in your advice, on that. And I want to give you a specific example of that. If I could just say, This past summer, I'm walking with my brother-in-law on the beach, and I think like Bitcoin, this is just an example, was like at $16,000. And I made this whole rationale of saying that if we, hey, Scott, if you and I bought like 10 Bitcoins together, it's never been really below 16,000. It's been as high as 60,000 before. It's only like an upside, blah, blah, whatever. And of course I didn't do that because I'm a CPA, I don't take risks. And now, of course, as I'm talking to you, Bitcoin is like at 42,000, I'm not wired to take risks, but you are, you talk to me about how much risk are you willing to accept? And what advice do you give to business owners when it comes to measuring risk before they make an investment in something?
All right, you couldn't have hit me on a better note, right? So when let's start with Bitcoin first of all.
Yeah.
When Bitcoin,
which is a crazy example, by the way, but it's my example.
But it's a real example because a lot of people lost a lot of money.
Yes.
Right. It was the new thing. It was going to be the new Google, the new Apple, the new, Jeff Bezos kind of thing. I didn't. What I did was really interesting. I looked at the platform that was going to facilitate those coins, not just Bitcoin, but Huobi and all the others. And I bought the platforms. So every time there's a transaction made, I made a lot of money. I still make a lot of money based on those transactions, not the coins. A friend of mine came to me one day and he said, look, I've got this stock. It's 20 cents a stock. And if you get in first, I'll give you a good deal. So I said, okay. I went in. So I went in with $20,000. I watched the stock grow. Great, great, great. I went to another broker of mine. I said, look, buy me another $100,000 worth of that stock. When it gets to $11, sell it. If it ever gets to $11, it was never supposed to. I ended up selling that stock for $5.7 million.
Okay.
Right. 3 weeks later, it went bankrupt. So it's about timing. I invest, and I said this earlier on in this conversation. I look at the mitigation of risk.
Right.
If I lose this much, am I okay with that?
Right.
Am I going to have a sleepless night? Would I bet everything and start all over again? No, I'm not that guy. Okay. I invested in a mine in Texas that has the 17 minerals that we need in this country. I can tell you in 3 months, what I put in, I've made 17 times back. Right. So I look at the market. I talk to people. I am a risk taker, by the way, but I like to mitigate the risk as much as I can.
Right.
Right. There's no infallible system. So I like to take risks. If I believe in something, I will go for it. I've not, touch wood, lost anything. I've only gained. But I think you have to, the old saying, speculate to accumulate. You have to look and you have to do your research and you have to listen to people that know more than you do to be able to do that, because I make eggs for a living. I'm not the smartest guy in the pack. There are better chefs out there. There are better business guys out there. I have been very strategic and lucky at the same time to be able to do what I do. But if I believe in it, I'll do it. A restaurant inside the Pentagon was supposed to cost me $500,000. I'm like, yeah, I'll do a restaurant in the Pentagon. It actually ended up costing me $2.6 million. Right? And it took me 5 years to make it profitable. Why? Because there is a limit on the menu prices you can charge because it's military. It's federal matching with pay and healthcare. Mm-hmm. But only after 5 years is it now making money. But here's the flip side to that. I have a restaurant in a building that has 28 to 35,000 people a day.
Yeah, kind of a no-brainer.
It's the flagship of what I do in my real world.
Yeah.
So is it a moneymaker? Yes, now after 5 years. But more so, it was a branding tool, which is what I wanted it to be for the rest of my business.
Okay. we only have a couple of minutes left, and we haven't even talked about the restaurant industry. And I'll ask you a specific question about the restaurant industry because that's a whole other conversation. The industry is mostly recovered. People are out there and starting up restaurants again, which is great. I live in Philly myself, like your daughter, and the downtown area is great with lots of new restaurants. It's all good. In all the years you've been running a restaurant, and you just gave me the example where you went into something with a $500,000 investment and turned it to $2.5 million. It's not going to be devastating for some, but you saw the return on investment, even with that added investment to be made. So I guess my question to you is to get your opinion and your thoughts on numbers for restaurateurs. Okay. What metrics do you think are most important for running a restaurant? When you're running restaurants, what do you look at?
Before I buy a restaurant, number one.
Okay, let's talk about that. Good.
Because that's really important. I hire a forensic accountant to go through the books. And why do I do that? Because anybody can make a P&L, and this as CPA, anybody can make a P&L look however they want to make it look. So when I go through with a forensic CPA, who I've had now for 25 years, he tells me red flag, red flag, red flag. So when I go to those meetings and I ask those questions, just like I do on a TV show,
sure,
I know when you're lying about your P&L. It's really simple. A P&L numbers never lie.
Where did you learn how to read a P&L, Robert, if I can ask? I mean, did you have any financial training or take accounting in school?
I used to run ships and warships and naval bases with profit and loss statements.
Okay.
For many years, for 20 years. Okay. So for me, profit and loss statement is like reading a book. It's either a good book or it's a bad book.
Okay.
And you can tell the financial health of the business in about 3 minutes by looking at it.
Okay.
Right. And if you look at a restaurant, if you're buying a restaurant that does $1.9 million a year and you're an owner, the first things I look at, obviously, food costs, labor costs, fixed expenses, and then the fund, the shit fund, if you like, if something goes wrong. Because 9 out of 10 times, it's the minute you walk in, the HIVAC system goes, and the lease or the landlord said, well, that's your problem, or the hood system goes, or the oven goes, or whatever, right? So I look at the P&L first and say, is it can I make more money than that 1.9 that they're actually doing? And how am I going to do that based on the physical plan that I look at? Is it outdated? Is it wallpaper? Is it carpet? All the things I do on my show. And I say, you know what? I'm going to pass on this because I don't think there's enough parking, or I don't think it would cost me another $1 million to fix it before I go into it. A lot of people get tied up into this situation there. Oh, your mom says you make great pasta, you make great sauce or gravy, whichever, or wherever you come from. You should have a restaurant. They go into the restaurant business. In 6 months, they bring all the friends, big party time. Then they realize they're $300,000 in debt.
Right.
And there's no way to get out of that. And that's where I come in. And I've been doing it for 16 years, not only on television, but with major corporations looking at their systems to make them better. So I always look at food, labor, overheads, the physical plan. What does it look like before I make a decision? And it's the same when we bring out a new product. I look at, okay, what is it going to cost us time-wise, labor-wise, computer-wise, equipment runs, minimum runs, all those things to be able to put my initial investment back in my pocket within the first 6 months to a year.
Wow, that was my next question. So you're looking for an ROI within 6 months to a year of making your investment. Okay. Mm-hmm. I find that unusual. Most of my clients, when they buy a piece of equipment or if they make some addition to their property, they're generally looking out like 2, 3, 4 years to get an ROI. Is that just you, or is that is that the industry?
That's the problem. It's probably the individual, but the problem with that is, you try to amortize it over a period of time.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, by the time you come to 4 years, you've been paying interest over a 4-year period where I could have spent, okay, I'm going to pay the $4,000 for the range or whatever it is, and I own it, and it goes, and if I take care of it, it's going to last me a long time. The minute you amateurize it, that's when we start having problems in don't clean it, don't take care of it. The cooks kick the crap out of it because it's not their equipment. And
Right.
it's not there. So when I grew up in the kitchen, even on cruise ships, which I still deal with today, when I was a young cook, we had to clean and take our equipment apart at the end of each shift.
Yeah.
Clean it, put it back, maintain it. That was our responsibility. Even in the Navy, when I was in the Navy, Marine, the same thing. We don't do that today because we don't hold people accountable. And that's the biggest problem because we baby them. We think, oh, we're paying them $27 an hour. If we push them too hard, they're going to leave and go somewhere else. Well, that's where you are a problem. You're not a good leader. You have to hold them accountable to do the job. If they leave, okay, they leave. Get over it. You got to find somebody else. And it's easier said than done, right? But I go into places on Restaurant Impossible every week and I say this. Don't let them run you. You're the owner. You're the leader. You're the money. And if you don't respect yourself, they'll run all over you. And that's the biggest problem with restaurants is leadership. They're not asking. So when I tell somebody to do something, I expect them to do it the way I've showed them to do it. When you ask them, you set an expectation, you hold them accountable, and you follow up. That's the system. If you set an expectation, let them go and do their own thing, come back in, they're doing it wrong. Whose fault is it? Theirs or yours? It's actually yours. Because you're not holding them accountable. In every restaurant I ever fix, every company I ever go into, they have a handbook, a set of rules, standard operating procedures. This is how it is. This is how it looks. This is how it goes on the plate. This is the recipe. Don't divert from that.
Right.
Or any other thing that we do.
Robert, you've been very kind with your time, and I appreciate it. We're out of time. I don't want to keep you any longer, but way more questions I wanted to ask you. But I appreciate the time you spent. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, I've been speaking to Robert Irvine. You know him as the host of Food Network's big hit show, Restaurant Impossible. He is also an entrepreneur, a world-class chef, a philanthropic supporter of the military, and also the author of a few books, including his most recent one, Overcoming Impossible. You can find more about Robert at chefirvine.com. Again, Robert, thank you very much. Everyone you have been watching and or listening to the Paychecks Thrive podcast. My name is Gene Marks. If you need any advice or tips or would like to suggest a future guest, please visit us at payx.me/Thrive Topics. Again, thanks for watching or listening. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Do you have a topic or a guest that you would like to hear on Thrive? Please let us know. Visit payx.me/Thrive Topics and send us your ideas or matters of interest. Also, if your business is looking to simplify your HR, payroll, benefits, or insurance services, see how Paychex can help. Visit the resource hub at paychex.com/works. That's WORX. Paychex can help manage those complexities while you focus on all the ways you want your business to thrive. I'm your host, Gene Marks, and thanks for joining us. Till next time, take care.
This podcast is property of Paychex Incorporated 2024. All rights reserved.